The quiet hum of a suburban afternoon was shattered by a faint, desperate sound. It wasn't loud, just a persistent scratching and a soft cry coming from a weathered wooden shed in the corner of a well-kept yard. A neighbor, watering his flowers, paused. The sun was relentless that day, baking the ground and turning cars into ovens. Curiosity turned to concern, and he decided to investigate. As he got closer, the sounds became clearer. It was a child, it cudged out, but only a muffled sob answered. That's when he called 911. When police arrived, the scene was unsettling. The shed was secured from the outside with a heavy padlock. The air inside had to be suffocating. Officers broke the lock and swung the door open. A wave of stifling heat rolled out, and there, huddled in the corner, was a small boy. No older than 6, he was drenched in sweat, his face streaked with dirt and tears, and his eyes wide with fear. He was dehydrated and disoriented, but thankfully alive. As paramedics rushed him to the hospital, investigators turned their attention to the house and the boy's parents, Mark and Susan. At first glance, they seemed like an ordinary family. The house was clean, the lawn was manicured, and neighbors described them as quiet but polite. When questioned, Mark and Susan were a picture of panic and confusion. They claimed their son, Daniel, had been playing in his room just an hour ago. They suggested he must have wandered outside and accidentally locked himself in the shed while playing a game. Their story was plausible, almost too plausible. The officers felt a nagging sense of doubt. The padlock was heavy-duty, not something a 6-year-old could easily operate. The investigation deepened. A search of the house revealed something strange. While most of the home was immaculate, Daniel's room was sparsely furnished. There were few toys, and the window was nailed shut. This wasn't the room of a cherished child. It felt more like a holding cell. Child Protective Services was brought in, and as they spoke with Daniel after he had recovered a bit, a darker picture began to emerge. He was a shy, withdrawn boy, and his words were hesitant. He spoke of quiet time in the box when he was bad. The box, he confirmed, was the shed. This wasn't a one-time accident. It was a routine punishment. The truth, when it finally spilled out, was chilling. Mark and Susan admitted they had been locking Daniel in the shed for months, sometimes for hours at a time, as a form of discipline. They saw it as a way to teach him a lesson when he was too loud or disobedient. They seemed genuinely to believe their actions were justified, a twisted form of parental control that had spiraled into severe abuse. They showed a shocking lack of remorse, more concerned about the trouble they were in than the trauma they had inflicted on their son. The community was horrified. How could this happen in their quiet neighborhood, right under their noses? The perfect facade of the family had hidden a terrible secret. Mark and Susan were arrested and faced charges of child endangerment and abuse. The case brought to light the terrifying reality that the greatest dangers can sometimes be found not in dark alleys, but behind the closed doors of seemingly normal homes. For Daniel, the road to recovery would be long. He was placed in foster care finally, in a safe environment where he could begin to heal and learn what it truly means to be a child, free to play, to be loud, and to be loved, not punished for it. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content that uncovers the hidden truths around us. Stay aware and stay safe. The nurse didn't ask again. She already knew. Gently, she lifted the girl's sleeve, then froze. Dark bruises. Old ones, new ones, layered, like time itself had been pressing down on her skin. What about here? The nurse asked softly. The girl nodded. It hurts there too. Her back told the story, her mouth didn't need to. Purple marks. Faded yellow ones beneath them. Different ages. Different moments. Same hands. A doctor stepped in. Quiet. Careful. He checked her wrist, then her elbow. Both swollen. Slightly misshapen. He didn't say anything out loud, but his face changed. Across town, the interrogation room felt smaller. Hotter. The detective slid a photo across the table. Derek stared at it. Didn't blink? What's that? The detective asked. Derek shrugged. I don't know. Those are burns, the detective said. Cigarette-shaped. Derek laughed once. Sharp. That's crazy. The detective didn't laugh back. Do you smoke? Cigars, Derek said. So what? The detective leaned forward. Ever put one out on her? Derek's jaw tightened. No. But you wouldn't put it past yourself? The detective asked. Silence. Next photo. A cut above the eye. Scarred. Healing wrong. How did this happen? The detective asked. Derek hesitated. She fell. The detective didn't raise his voice. From where? Derek looked away. I don't remember. Another file. Medical notes. Dates. Patterns. She's missing hair, the detective said. Pulled out. Not falling. Derek's voice dropped. She lies. Back at the hospital, the girl sat with a social worker. Crayons in front of her. She drew a small box. No windows. Just a door. Locked. What's this? The worker asked. The shed. And this? She asked, pointing to a stick figure. That's me. The worker swallowed. Who put you there? The girl answered quietly. He did. At the station, the detective stood up. We're done, he said. Derek looked confused. You don't get it, Derek said. I was trying to help her. The detective paused at the door. You don't help a child by breaking them. Outside, paperwork began. Charges. Calls made. Decisions finalized. The system was finally moving, but it had taken too long. Far too long, and the worst question still hung in the air. How much pain can a child survive before someone finally listens? The room was quiet. Too quiet. Only the hum of the air conditioner filled the space. The detective didn't rush. He let the silence do the work. Samantha stared at the table. Hands folded, then 10 folded, then folded again. You said you were scared? The detective began calmly. Scared of who? She didn't answer. So he waited. Of him, she whispered. Her voice cracked on the word. Tell me why, the detective said. She swallowed hard. When he gets angry, he changes. She described it slowly. The yelling, the pacing, the way objects became weapons. He doesn't mean to, she said quickly, as if rehearsed. He just loses control. The detective leaned in. Does he hit her? Samantha's eyes filled. Yes. How often? Another pause. Then? Too much. She explained the shed. Not as punishment, as discipline. She wouldn't listen, Samantha said. She took food. She touched things. The detective's voice stayed steady. So you locked a 6-year-old child in a shed, in 100-degree heat. Samantha nodded. I tried to give her water. How much? He asked. She hesitated. Sometimes, none. The words hung heavy. Across the hallway. Another door. Another room. Another story. Derek sat back in his chair, arms crossed. Defensively, she's not my kid, he repeated. Not my responsibility. The detective didn't argue. He let Derek talk. She lies, Derek said. She steals, she corrupts my daughter. And that justifies locking her up, the detective asked. Derige is cuffed. She needed to learn. The detective slid the medical report forward. Broken skin. Swelling. Signs of repeated trauma. Derek glanced at it, then pushed it away. I didn't do that. Your wife says you did, the detective replied. That got his attention. Derek leaned forward. She's lying, he snapped. She says you hit her, the detective continued. Kicked her. Derry shook his head. No. No. I'd never. He stopped himself. I mean, I disciplined her. The detective didn't interrupt. She bruises easily, Derek added. She's dramatic. Back at the hospital, the girl lay under a blanket. Air-conditioned. Air-conditioned. Safe. For the first time in days. A doctor gently touched her wrist. It's okay, he said softly. She whispered back, he gets mad when I cry. That was the moment. The line crossed. No more excuses. No more delays. Back at the station, the detective closed the folder. Both of you are being charged, he said. Samantha cried. Derek exploded, but the doors were already closing. And this time, they weren't opening again. The truth didn't come all at once. It came in pieces. Sharp, ugly, impossible to ignore. The detective leaned back. He wasn't angry. That was worse. This wasn't the first time, he said quietly. Samantha froze. How long has this been happening? Husked. She stared at the wall. Weeks, months. Then she whispered, almost a year. A year. A child learning fear as routine. She slept in the shed before, Samantha admitted. Not always locked, but alone. The detective wrote nothing. He already knew. Why? He asked. Samantha wiped her face. He said she was a bad influence. He said she needed to be separated. Separated from what? The detective asked. The detective asked. From the family. Another room, another voice. Another story unraveling. Derek was pacing now. The calm was gone. They're exaggerating, he snapped. She was fed. What did she eat? The detective asked. Whatever we had. Name it. Derek hesitated. Crackers, tortillas, stuff, and water. Silence. She steals food, Derek finally said. She eats too much. The detective's eyes hardened. She's 6, he replied. 6-year-olds eat when they're hungry. Derek scoffed. You don't understand, he said. She came damaged. That word lingered. Damaged. At the hospital, a social worker knelt beside the bed. When you get in trouble, she asked gently, what happens? The girl answered without hesitation. I get hit. With what? Say, shrugged. Hands. Sometimes other things. The social worker didn't ask more. She didn't need to. Medical photos told the rest. Old bruises, new bruises, different stages of healing, a timeline written on skin. Back at the station. The detective placed the photos on the table in front of Derek. He looked away. These don't come from falling, the detective said. They come from force. Derek clenched his jaw. You're trying to frame me, he said. No, the detective replied. You framed yourself. Samantha was shown the same photos. She collapsed. He said it would stop, she cried. He promised. But it didn't, the detective said. She shook her head. No, the pattern was clear now. Isolation, control, punishment, escalation. This wasn't discipline. It was cruelty. Systematic. Normalized. The detective stood. This ends today, he said. And for the first time, that promise mattered. The room felt smaller now. Hotter. Derek sat forward. His confidence was cracking, not loudly. Quietly. You said she wasn't locked, the detective said, but the lock was above her reach. That doesn't mean anything, Derek snapped. The detective slid a photo across the table, a rusted latch. Hi? Unreachable. You live there, the detective said. You knew. Derek rubbed his face. I didn't think she couldn't get out, he muttered. You didn't think, the detective replied. That's the problem. In the next room, Samantha listened through the wall. Every word felt heavier. The detective returned to her. Did you ever unlock the shed? He asked. She nodded slowly. When he wasn't home. And when he was, she swallowed. I wasn't allowed. Fear filled the silence. He said I was weak, she whispered. He said she needed discipline. And if you disagreed? The detective asked. Her voice dropped. He yelled. He threw things. Sometimes worse. Back in Derek's room, his tone shifted. Defensive became desperate. I was trying to help her, he said. She lies. She manipulates. She's 6, the detective replied. She's surviving. Derek leaned back. Ice. Darthing. You don't know what she did, he said. Tell me, the detective said calmly. Derek hesitated, then spoke faster. She touched my kid. She was corrupting her. The detective didn't react. He waited. No reports. No medical findings. No interviews confirmed that, he said. Hisk slammed his fist on the table. She admitted it, he shouted. Did she? The detective asked. Or did you decide she did? The anger drained, replaced by something else. Panic. Samantha was shown transcripts. Word for word, her face went pale. That's not what happened, she said. Then what did? The detective asked. She closed her eyes. He needed someone to blame, she whispered. And she was easy. That sentence changed everything. The detective stood. You both had choices, he said. You made them. Outside the rooms. Paperwork began. Charges were being typed. Lives were shifting. Inside the hospital, the child slept. Cool air. Clean sheets. No locks. For the first time in months, no fear followed her into sleep. But the story wasn't over, not even close. Because now, the system had to answer. The hallway smelled like disinfectant. Cold. Sterile. A printer hummed. Paper slid out. Charges. Official. Permanent. The detective read them slowly. Each word landed hard. False imprisonment. Child abuse. Conspiracy. Derek stared through the glass. His jaw tightened. You can't do this, he said. We already did, the detective replied. Across the station, Samantha sat alone. Hands shaking. Eyes red. She wasn't crying anymore. She looked empty. A female officer sat beside her. This isn't about punishment, she said. It's about safety. Samantha nodded. Barely. I never wanted this, she whispered. But you allowed it, the officer replied. At the hospital, doctors finished their exams. Bruises photographed, measurements taken. Old injuries, new injuries, patterns. The report was clear. This wasn't an accident. A child services worker closed her notebook. She's not going back, she said. Not tonight. Not ever. Back at the station, handcuffs clicked shut. Metal on skin final. Derek stood up. No bond, the officer said. His face changed. Shock. Then rage. You're ruining my life. You lie? The officer didn't flinch. You ruined hers first, she said. Samantha was escorted next. Her cuffs felt heavier, not because of metal, because of guilt. As she passed the interview room, she stopped. Is she okay? She asked. The officer nodded. She's safe. That word echoed. Safe. Outside, the sun was still brutal, but the shed was silent now, empty, unlocked. Neighbors watched quietly, some shocked, some angry, some ashamed they hadn't noticed sooner. A case number was assigned. Evidence logged. A court date scheduled. This was no longer a secret. It was a record, and somewhere in a quiet hospital room, a 6-year-old girl slept peacefully. No heat, no fear, no lock above her head. For the first time, someone had chosen her. But justice moved slowly, and the hardest part was still ahead. Morning came quietly, too quietly. No sirens, no shouting, just paperwork. A judge reviewed the file. Photos, medical reports, statements. Every page told the same story. Neglect, fear, control. The ruling was short. Both adults would remain in custody. No bail. Risk to the children was severe. Those words mattered. They changed everything. Child Protective Services moved fast. Temporary custody orders signed. Placements arranged. Ava and Millie were separated. Not forever, but for safety. Ava went first. Into a clean car. Cold water. A soft blanket. She held it tight, like it might disappear. At the foster home, she hesitated at the door. "Can I go inside?" she asked. The woman smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. This is your room. A bed, real pillows, a nightlight." Ava touched the mattress. Soft. She didn't smile. "Not yet. Across town," Millie cried. She didn't understand. Only that her parents were gone. Social workers rocked her gently. "It's okay," they whispered. But it wasn't okay. Not yet. Back at the detention center, Derek paced his cell. Sweat dripping. Hands clenched. "They lied," he muttered. "They all lied." No one answered. Samantha sat on her bunk, staring at the wall. Her voice was barely there. "I should have stopped it." That sentence repeated. Again and again. Detectives reviewed past calls. Old reports ignored warnings, missed chances. The case wasn't just about one house, it was about silence. Neighbors gave statements. Some looked down. Some cried. "I thought it was discipline," one said. Another whispered. "I heard her crying." Ava met with a therapist. Crayons. Paper. She drew a box. Small. Dark. Then she drew a door. "Open." The therapist nodded. "You're safe now." Ava looked up. "Forever." The therapist paused. "From this," she said. "Yes." The case spread fast. News headlines. Public outrage. But Ava didn't know that. She only knew. No one locked her in that night. Still, nightmares came. Sweat. Shaking. But someone was there now. Every time. Healing had started. Slow. Fragile. Real. And the system finally watched closely. But one question remained. What would justice really look like? Weeks passed. The world moved on. But this case refused to be forgotten. Behind closed doors, the immense machinery of the legal system began to turn. Prosecutors started stacking files, each one heavier than the last. Photographs of the scene, medical scans showing injuries, and signed witness statements. Every single detail mattered now. The charges were read again, each word hanging in the air. Child abuse. False imprisonment conspiracy. Defense attorneys arrived. radiating confidence in their pressed suits and calm voices. Tay spoke of misunderstandings and discipline gone wrong. They described it as poor living conditions, not abuse. But the prosecution strongly disagreed. They focused on a single, undeniable point: intent. Locks don't install themselves by accident. Heat doesn't lie. Investigators painstakingly reconstructed the scene. They pulled temperature logs and weather reports. 104 degrees. No shade. No water. A metal? Shit. It was a death trap. Medical experts prepared their testimony, pointing to bruises of different ages, healing fractures, and clear signs of long-term trauma. This wasn't just one bad day, it was a lifetime of them. Ava, the child at the center of it all, was assigned a guardian ad litem. This was someone whose only job was to protect her voice. They decided she wouldn't have to testify. She had been through more than enough. But her story would be told. Her drawings spoke volumes. Her words to therapists and the details in her medical records, they would speak for her. Samantha, the mother, met with her attorney. Her eyes fixed on the floor, her hands shaking. She was scared, the lawyer would later argue. She was controlled. But fear does not erase responsibility. In a separate cell, Derek, the stepfather, practiced a very different story, over and over again. "I was just trying to teach her," he'd say. "I was protecting my family." The jailhouse walls heard it all, but they remained unconvinced. The courtroom was silent, a heavy, expectant silence. The judge entered, and everyone rose. This was no longer just a story whispered in the town. It was real. The charges were read aloud, slowly and clearly, each count echoing off the hard wooden benches. Derek sat perfectly straight, his jaw tight. Samantha sat beside her attorney, her folded hands trembling. The prosecution stood first, calm and prepared. "This case," the prosecutor began, "is about choice. A child was locked away. Not once, not briefly, but repeatedly." They showed photos of the shed, the lock, the bucket. No commentary was needed. The images screamed louder than any words. Medical reports followed, detailing bruises, scars, and patterns of injury that were clearly not accidents. An EMT testified, his voice steady. She was dehydrated. She was overheated. She was afraid. Experts in psychology and pediatrics explained what long-term trauma does to a child. This wasn't discipline, one stated firmly. This was about control. The defense team shifted uncomfortably. When it was their turn, they spoke of poverty, stress, and mental health issues, asking the jury for understanding. But understanding is not the same as excusing. Derek chose to testify against his lawyer's advice. "I was trying to help," he said. "I didn't mean any harm." The prosecutor had only one question. "Did you unlock the door?" A long silence filled the room. "No," Derek finally answered. And that was enough. The jury returned. 12 faces, holding the weight of weeks of testimony and years of pain. The clerk stood envelope in hand. The room held its breath. On the count of false imprisonment, we find the defendant guilty. Guilty. No. A quiet gasp rippled through the room. Someone sobbed. Count after count, the same word was spoken. Abuse. Conspiracy. Neglect. Guilty. 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 Handcuffs clicked. Derek was led away, his face a mask of stone. The judge's words were firm. These crimes were deliberate. They were preventable. They were cruel. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. But inside, a quiet truth had been established. The child was believed. The system, this time, did not fail. Across town, in a small, quiet room with soft light, a little girl was coloring. Crayons were scattered around her. There were no locks, no suffocating heat, no fear. For the first time, safety felt real. Justice doesn't erase scars or return lost time, but it draws a line. A clear, unmovable line. And 'tis time that line held. The legal battle was over, but the story wasn't. Because healing is a whole other battle. Thanks for watching. The courtroom emptied. Justice spoken, but silence followed. For the child, the noise never truly stopped. Nightmares still came. Soft at first, then sharp. Doors slamming, locks clicking. Heat closing in. She woke shaking. Every time, therapy rooms replaced courtrooms. Smaller, quieter. A woman knelt to a level, spoke slowly, kindly. Tell me when you're ready. Some days, she wasn't. Other days, words spilled out. Broken, confused, painful, but they were hers. Across town, Samantha faced her own reckoning. A cell, cold, bare. No yelling now, no control, just time. Time to remember, time to regret. She replayed every moment, every chance to stop it. Every silence, they echoed louder than screams. Derek waited too. Concrete walls, steel doors. Anger still burned, but nowhere to send it. No one listened. No one feared him. That power was gone. Back in foster care, the child learned routines. Breakfast at the same hour. Lights out gently. Predictable. Safe. She flinched less, spoke more, smiled once. Then again. A small victory, but real. Justice had done its part. The law had spoken. But healing was quieter, slower. It happened in crayons, in calm voices and doors left unlocked. And for the first time, she believed tomorrow might be different. Not perfect, not easy, but hers. Healing didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in. Quietly. Mornings came with structure. Same chair, same cup. Same voice, same good morning. At first, she didn't answer. Then one day, she whispered back. The system moved slowly. Paperwork. Meetings. Files stacked high. Strangers decided her future with calm faces. Serious words. But none of them knew the shed. They didn't smell the heat. Didn't hear the lock. Didn't feel the fear. She did. Counselors explained boundaries. Safe touch. Safe words. She listened. Carefully. Trust was harder. Trust took time. At night, she checked doors. Again. And again. Old habits don't vanish. They fade. Samantha sat through hearings. Eyes down. Hands folded. No excuses now. Only consequences. She spoke once. Voice shaking. I should have protected her. It wasn't forgiveness. But it mattered. Derek's world shrank further. Routine replaced rage. Guards. Counts. Silence. No audience. No control. Just walls. Back in school, the child learned numbers. Letters. Songs. She struggled, but she tried. A teacher noticed. Waited. Didn't rush. That patience changed everything. One afternoon, she laughed. Out loud, it surprised her. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days were heavy. Some days felt free. Both were progress. The road back was long, still unfinished. But she was walking it on her own terms in peacetime. No one locked the door behind her. Some stories don't end. They settle. The courtroom emptied, chairs scraped back. Doors closed. A verdict was spoken. Clear. Firm. Guilty. The word echoed. not loud. Heavy sentences followed. Years measured in numbers, not emotions. Justice has limits. It can poons, but it cannot erase. The shed still exists. In memory, the heat, the lock, the silence, they don't disappear. They soften. She grew. Slowly. Carefully. Birthdays passed. Candles replaced fear. Some nights, she still woke up, heart racing. But now, someone came when she called Tatma tedded. Samantha faded from the story, a name in files, a face in old photos. Regret doesn't always mean repair. Derek became a number, an inmate ID control gone, voice unheard. The power he once held, gone, and the child. She learned something rare, too early, that survival is strength, that kindness can return, that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like family. This story isn't about punishment. It's about attention, about listening, because abuse hides in quiet places, behind excuses. And it only survives when no one looks. If one person noticed sooner, everything could have changed. So remember this. When a voice sounds small, listen. When a door stays closed too long, ask why. Because sometimes, justice begins with someone simply knocking.